morning. Here we are again back in Cardiff Bay at the wonderful Cardiff Yacht Club, and Green Tambourine is out of the water. There are winter jobs to do. You may remember last year while I was out in the Atlantic, we had some trouble with water getting in. Of course, the trouble with a small boat like this is that she's very close to the water, and most of the time the water's coming over the top. So I couldn't help noticing that the windows were leaking after my sat-nav went out, and water was getting into everything was soaking wet. So my job today is to take the windows out, or start having a go at taking the windows out, and to send them away and get them resealed, because there's nothing worse really than being soaking wet and miserable and cold. At least if you can stay dry, then things are not too bad, are they? I have the sailor's best tools, which are a hammer and a screwdriver. You cannot fail with a hammer and a screwdriver, I'm rather being informed. I've already had a look at one of these, and bless my soul, it's coming out. Now, isn't that marvellous? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's one of 8. Let's see if they're all going to be so good. Generally, what happens is everything goes fine until the last screw in a sequence, and that's the one that won't come out. From poor old hands. Now I'm told you must exert maximum pressure and force and turn the bus. There we are. That's number 1 and number 2. How exciting is this? Let's get on to number 3. I've been advised, obviously, as well, very wisely I think, to start with something easy. There it goes. That was close to what I can do. I could put a spanner on this screwdriver, because it's one of those screwdrivers that you can put a spanner on, but so far I haven't needed to. Yes! Oh God, this is such a joy. Let us not cross our bridges too quickly, because I'm all too aware that things can still change. That's half of these screws out. Okay, problem number 1. This isn't coming out, so the nut on the back is turning too, which is a bit of a pain because I haven't got any crew with me today. Okay, that's 7 out of 8. This little fellow here is being a nuisance. Being a ruddy nuisance. Hey, look at this. This, my friends, is going to be a good job. This is coming out. Apparently people have a habit of fastening these in with Sikaflex or silicone, which means it will never come off again. So I just have a problem with that top screw there. Uppermost rear. Let's go and have a look down below and see what's going on with that one, whether there's any chance of shifting. So this fella here, it's what I need is something. I need someone to hold a pair of pliers or a mole grip or something on on this screw, on this nut. Who's forgotten to bring their mole grips? I don't know. Couldn't be me. Let's have a think about this. Made a decision. I shall try a few more windows and see how far we get with them all. And at some point, someone might turn up and give me a hand. So let's try the other front window here. Seven. Right, is this one gonna prove the rule, which is that the last bolt in a series is always the difficult one? Happy days. Okay. Is that going to come out? Yes, it's falling out a treat. Look at that. These have been bedded onto the fantastic butyl tape, haven't they? And that's why they're coming off so nicely. Great. That's absolutely splendid. Excellent. There's a bit of corrosion in here where the seawater's been getting in. Somewhere close to the bolt holes, isn't it? Okay, that's done started off the two easy ones. Let's try a slightly harder one. This is the window that was leaking onto my chart table. And through this window came the salt water that spoiled my Raspberry Pi based chop platter. So this is really one of the ones I'm really keen to get watertight. I did put some I squeezed some butyl tape around the inside edge here, but it didn't make a noticeable difference, to be honest. The reason for hitting these is just to give the joint a bit of a little shock so that it just moves a little tiny bit so that it will then unscrew. So come on, yeah, you see, you can do this. Be very careful. The important thing is never to let these screwdrivers slip in the slot, because then you're on a very slippery slope, which ends up with drills and broken drills and misery. With a hammer and a screwdriver, no job is impossible. Okay, here we have a refuser. Bother. Right. Let's try the spanner on it. Well, look at this. One window out. Two windows out. Three windows out. Actually, they're all out. Whoever had this boat last was an absolute saint, because they did not stick the windows in with Sikaflex or silicone. They used butyl of some sort, and actually thereby lies most of the reason why they're leaking, I think, because it was quite obvious that the water was getting down between the butyl and the hull of the boat. I expect that's probably because it wasn't really cleaned properly before reassembling it. So they're all out, just need now to be cleaned up and sent away for refurbishment, and that's great. I'm going to make a cup of tea. Always the best way. And I have to say that the tried and trusted sailor's screwdriver and hammer method worked perfectly. Every screw came out all right. My good friend Nico called by. There was a couple of screws where the inside interscrew was rotating, and obviously not having 30-foot long arms, I couldn't reach it, but he came along and he very kindly went inside and held the pliers, and so I was able to get all these windows out in a couple of hours, which is, I was expecting it to be all day. So that's a massive win for me. Yay! I'm gonna, as I say, time for tea. I just need now to bung up the olds for a few weeks while they go off to the incredible Eagle windows in Bury St Edmunds to be refurbished. So I brought with me some lovely plastic, and I'm going to try and gaffer tape that over the windows. Let's see what kind of a mess we can get in with this, eh? Suitably prepared. Right, so let's have a look at the first one, see whether my cunning idea is a goer. You know what? I think this is going to work. You couldn't stick gaffer tape down in the wet, so luckily I've picked the only sunny day this probably month. Needless to say, I have cleaned everything up quite carefully with a bit of white spirit and so forth, so it's not quite such a bodge job as it looks. Well, I hope it isn't. We'll see in a few weeks when I come back if there's anything still here. Gaffer tape, hammer, screwdriver. They say it's the only toolkit you need, and it is, isn't it? So here we are. Made the most of one of the shortest days of the year. All 6 windows are out. All 6 window holes are plugged up with gaffer tape and plastic. But as it's been done in the dry, I think it'll be all right. Looks like a proper job, doesn't it? And yeah, each window is similarly sorted. A builder's bag and some wonderful gaffer tape. Because it's dry, I think that's really stuck well. I would say probably the problem, if there's going to be a problem, it's going to be getting that off and removing the adhesive. But I've got an industrial thing of what used to be white spirit, and as long as the job doesn't take too long, I think it'll be okay. So right, it's just a question of tidying up. Put the cockpit cover back on, because this being a early British Contessa 26, the cockpit doesn't drain. Well, it can drain, but only into the bilge, and that's a bit of a dud, isn't it? Because once the bilge is full up, you then have it in the cabin. So what I do is I've the drain plugs for the drains for the cockpit here. I put a cork in each one, and I stop it from draining altogether, especially when I'm not here, because that way you could slowly fill up the boat. There is someone at some point in the past has put this drain below the bilge pump, and that drain goes straight out the back. So if you've got more than 2 or 3 inches of water in here, then it does start running away. So that's the thing to do. Leave the plugs in, let the water run away, then finally the last bit you can let it down into the bilge while running the bilge pump. It's not perfect, is it? Not like a I don't know how, I mean, I suppose it must have been a bit of the flaw in the design, that he designed the boat not thinking to himself very clearly that the cockpit deck was going to be under the water. So yeah, not a brilliant win. The later ones are better, and they just about do drain. So I think that's probably the worst aspect of this boat. Apart from that, I absolutely love her.
Yes, away, Santi, my dear Annie. Oh, you New York girls, can't you dance?